Hi, everybody. It's Chris Grimm. This is Deep Work Fast, where every week I drop a blog on Monday, and then I come to you on Tuesday and talk through the tools, information, ideas to help you be the best that you can be in all the roles that you play at home and at work. Boss, team member, parent, partner, all of them. This week is one of my favorite topics. I coach people on this all the time, and it does not matter whether it is a really experienced executive, CEO of a big company, or it's a new leader, a new young person early in their career. Everybody needs coaching on this topic. The topic is how to disagree or have what you believe is an uncomfortable, potentially dangerous conversation with your boss or someone of influence who maybe they're higher than you in the organization or politically they've got more clout than you, and you need to have a conversation with them. And maybe you don't feel safe doing that. Like I said, I coach people on this topic all the time. It's fact of life. Some people will say to me, it's unsafe. There's retaliation potentially. It could be a career limiting move. We've all had them. And like I said, it can be a CEO telling me that about an investor conversation or someone on their board. It could be someone lower in the organization telling me they need to go and talk to HR about something. Just really, really common. So I wanted to talk through with you the steps that I coach people on so that you could use this for yourself, or you can coach other people, because most likely you're hearing about these situations and you know that this is never going away, right? Power dynamics in organizations and on teams is real. And the need to disagree or have conversations that might be uncomfortable because you don't agree with a decision, or maybe you have information that you think that other person clearly doesn't have, or they wouldn't be making that conversation. Whatever you think, this is a skill set that I want you to have. Okay, so I'm going to talk through some things. You might want to take some notes. You could also get our blog, Heather Mission Control. We'll put that in the chat here for you so you can click through easily. It's a really short read, but I'd rather talk through it so that you can write this down in your own words and use it later. Okay, so the first thing that I say to everyone who tells me they need to have a conversation and they're not feeling safe, they're not feeling like this is potentially going to go well, and maybe they're questioning whether they're going to be brave enough to have this conversation. So the first thing I say is stop and do your homework. And here's what I mean by that. And again, I do this with everybody, CEOs, all the way through an organization. So you are not exempt from this. Number one is do your homework. And what I mean is that you should not only be carrying the facts and the information related to your view of the topic, but you should do the homework to understand all the opposing viewpoints. A few weeks ago, I put out a blog and I talked about intellectual honesty. This is a part of that, right? We can't just always go guns a-blazing when we are upset and or believe that we have to represent an opinion or a way of decision making or what you think is the right way forward, without understanding why anyone, not just the person you're going to be talking to, might think otherwise. It is responsible, it is appropriate, and it actually makes it safe for everyone when you understand all parts of the potential argument or that topic, right? So you're not just collecting data to convince someone of your opinion. That's what makes it safe, by the way, for you and the other person, is that you do your homework about all the different opinions. Now, it is going to take a little time to do that, and it is worth it so that this conversation, when you have it, you're prepared, but also you can speak to all points of view. I promise, if you are a person who wants to be promoted, which most people might want that, right? This is an essential part of it, right? Doing your homework all the time, showing up, knowing what you're talking about beyond your own opinion. The second thing is timing and location. I cannot overemphasize to you how important it is that if you need to set up time to speak to someone and you want their full attention, where you do it and when you do it matters. You want to eliminate as many distractions as possible. You also want to be in a space where you're not going to be more nervous than maybe you already are to have the conversation, right? So maybe not in a public space, question mark. Not in a 15-minute window of time where you're not going to have enough time to have the conversation, right? So timing and location matters. And that brings me to the third point that a lot of people don't know how to do. This is another whole skill set. If you don't have it, you should put it on your list for 2025 to do it. And that is having a proactive, solid relationship with the admins, the executive assistants, and the chief of staff, if there is one, related to the executives that you need to work with. These are the people who can help you, what I call set the table. And as you grow in your career, if in fact you are still in an early part of your career, this is something that I can't put enough emphasis on, because if you just try to yourself do all this homework in the background and get the best time and place to be with the executive that you want to talk to, right? If you don't have the support team, their support team on your side, clear about what you're going to be talking about. You could step in potholes that you wouldn't know about, but when you have that team on your side, and I do it all the time, I coach a lot of executives and I've been doing it a long time. Oftentimes I'll meet with their chief of staff or their EA first. How are things going? This is how much time I need. This is this topic that I want to talk about. I have a few chiefs of staff who sometimes will say to me, oh my gosh, like there's so much going on. Can I help you? Like, can I make a slide with this on there if you're doing it on Zoom, for instance, and you need a visual to keep the person's attention? Whatever, their support team or their support person, whatever that is, will help you. And that is going to be a part of you learning the best approach to have this conversation. It also starts to take what I call the pressure off, because now if you have a pre-conversation with the chief of staff or the EA, they can tell you, like, is this even on the boss's radar? Or are you just upset about it? And so if you go in with all this energy around this thing, is it going to be surprising to that person? Like, are they going to be a little caught off guard? And by the way, that actually brings me to a really big part of this, which is part of you preparing. I highly recommend, please listen to what I'm about to say, eliminating any and all drama. Now, I am not saying you have to go around the company and eliminate politics and drama with other people. That is not what I am saying. What I am saying is eliminate the drama from yourself around the topic that you want to talk about. And here's how you do that. First, when you're doing the homework and you're preparing to have this conversation, I want you to notice what is factual and what is real about this topic versus what are some perceptions that maybe you have that are contributing to you having anger, anxiety, or feeling like you need to go have this conversation and disagree with the decision, or maybe try and persuade the leader to make a decision in a different way. So I want you to get super real. Reality is your friend. It also helps with psychological safety for you and the other person, because you're grounding your conversation in reality versus the opposite of reality, which can be delusion. It can be mistaken understanding of what other people could be doing and saying, right? So get super real when you're doing the homework. That should actually be a part of the goal of your homework part of this, the preparation. The other thing is that you want to eliminate what we call the drama triangle. I have done a deep work fast at least once on this. There's lots of blogs. If you Google drama triangle, dreaded drama triangle, you'll find it. A drama triangle is when the people involved are either perceived as or playing a role of like an agitator, a victim, a hero. So often what I find is when I'm coaching people, when they tell me about a situation and they're upset about it, like we planned for 4 months, we were doing product planning and strategic planning and budgeting, and then I got caught off guard. I don't understand why the boss is making a decision to cut my team, make my team smaller and add headcount to this person's team. That's not fair. And they start to get this narrative that has all these characters in it, right? Not the actual people in real life, but a version of them. Thanks, Mission Control. We don't need to put up the drama triangle. Thank you for asking. But everybody, this is important to understand. Because oftentimes what happens, and if you're a leader, you're going to probably understand this more than someone who may have never been a manager or a leader before, but everybody can learn from this. When people come to you to talk to you about those high stakes, important issues, the last thing you want is for them to come into your office with a whole bunch of like intense emotions or a storyline that pits people against each other. It's the last thing you want, even if in real life it's true. If you want to solve the issue and have a productive conversation and potentially disagree with the direction that the boss is going, it would help you to neutralize it all. And the way we do that is to think through it and take away the drama and instead find the facts of the situation. Get, like I said, neutral, find some balance in the way you're going to talk about this. Make sure you check yourself, like, is the urgency or the intensity that you're feeling warranted? Are you having a false sense of urgency because you believe that if in fact you don't have this conversation and convince the boss to do something else, something bad's going to happen? You know, I used an example a few minutes ago because it was a real one and I was coaching someone. They really felt slighted and caught off guard because in the budgeting process, they didn't get the head count that they thought they were going to get to support a whole strategic planning process and what they thought were a series of agreements from their boss, from their whole LT, their leadership team, and supported by some other functions. So all of a sudden, this person was like, whoa, I can't deliver on this commitment. I can't have these stretch goals if I'm not going to get the people. Not an uncommon thing to happen in real life. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why that can happen in a process. And so this is a great example of a conversation where the person came to me and said, how do I even talk about this? I feel like he's going to look at me and say, tough, figure it out. And I can't. I'm not going to be able to deliver unless I have this conversation. So we worked on this. And I was like, first of all, can we just take the drama out of this? And can we also kind of dial back this overactive, too intense emotion? Because what it feels like when you're the receiver of that is like the person is kind of coming in and they're what I call fire hosing with intensity. And if you think about it, most people you're talking to, but specifically busy leaders, executives, board members, they got a lot on their plate. Right. At any one time, there could be 10, 15 big fires burning. And so you coming in with yours at that moment, you want to make sure that you don't overwhelm them to the point where they can't hear you at that moment. So back to that timing and making sure you're prepared, but also realizing that how you present this matters. And your ability to not only think objectively, but to demonstrate that you can be objective is a part of your maturity. And like I said, it also makes it safe for the other person to respond to you and know that they're not going to potentially say to you, you know what, right now I can't have this conversation, or I don't want to have this conversation with you. I knew you were upset, but I can't deal with it right now, and I can't change the decision. So that might be something that the executive or the boss says back to you, and they're afraid, right? That feels unsafe to them, that they're going to make it unsafe for you, trigger you, and have a big mess on their hands. And so being able to manage and regulate your own emotions is critical. And you can't do that if you're in your head or verbally, you're telling a story about unfairness or you have a lot of drama in it. Hopefully you understand what I'm saying. And hopefully through this process that you can hear the coaching that I'm giving to you right now, because I do want you to be successful. The other things that you need to do before you go have that conversation and tell the boss you disagree or ask for a relitigation of a conversation is one you should practice. So after you've done that homework and you've started to prepare yourself by thinking about your own thinking and thinking about the story that you're telling about this and starting to neutralize it, is that you should practice. So what I mean by that is practice, like talk about with yourself first, or with a coach, or with a trusted, objective third party person who's not involved in this at all. That means when you practice, you talk through your rationality. Why am I having this conversation? What is the best outcome of that situation? Like, why am I going in and having this conversation? I want you to limit yourself to 3 things. So if you haven't heard of the rule of 3, most people can't remember more than 3 things. Right. That's why when people make big presentations and they've got slides full of bullet points, I'm always just like, that all might be important, but the people or the person you're presenting to, they're not going to remember all that. So you want to give them something they can handle. You want to give people something that they can, digest in the moment with you, hear you, process it, have organized thoughts, respond to you in an organized way, so that hopefully we can make something different or move forward, right? So you're practicing, you're putting together your thoughts, you're thinking about kind of what are the big 3 things maximum that I'm going to talk to this person about in this conversation. I'm not going to overload them with 7 reasons why they need to change their mind or something like that. That's just, it's not going to work. And you need to think about in the process, here's that going back to the planning and getting some help from the person's support team if they have someone. You need to prepare that person, not ambush them. So this is a really important thing. I coach a lot of executives, and I think that some of you might agree with me. One of the pet peeves that most leaders they don't have time for, is feeling ambushed, right? Feeling like a person sets up a meeting, phone call, a Zoom, in person, whatever it is, and them having absolutely no idea what the person is going to talk about. You don't get the best of this executive. And if you're emotional, like I said, or if this is a high stakes, sensitive topic, things like budgeting and resourcing and people and decisions, you are more apt to have a successful conversation if they know it's coming. And oftentimes I'll send an email like the day before, and I highly recommend you consider doing this, telling them what I want to talk about. Now, there is risk in that, and I want to address it. I know we're getting down to time, but it's worth the last minute so that you can think about it. There is always the risk that when you send prep materials to an exec, even if it's just a short text or an email, hey, I'm meeting with you tomorrow and here's what I want to talk about, they could say no. You know what that means? It means that you didn't prep enough. You didn't talk to their admin staff. You didn't get help knowing the timing, the location, and thinking about how can I best set the table so that when I get with this person, we can have a productive conversation. They can hear you, you can hear them, and maybe you can influence the change that you want. So if you haven't done it yet, grab that blog. The link is there in the chat. It's a short read. It is worth it. Like I said, this is not going away. We will all have people of influence we have to meet with. And sometimes we're going to have uncomfortable conversations. We might have to disagree. We might have to ask them to rethink a decision, or we might just need to express ourselves so that we don't feel uncommitted to the things that are happening on our team or in our organization. Okay, well, thank you for joining me, as always, for Deep Work Fast. I will be back next week, and grab that blog. Be the best you can be in all your roles. And if you have ideas for topics that you want me to cover, go ahead and put that in the chat, and I will do my best to get it here for you. Okay, bye.